True job. So a little about myself. My name is wesruv. I'm a front-end developer at Lullabot. Been there a couple years. I've been working with Drupal since version 6. I'm definitely a markup snob and CSS and Sass dork. I'm a big fan of writing custom code over using existing contrib themes or whatever. So just so you know kind of my slant, and I'll pepper in some editorial for you. You can find these slides at wesruv, and I put in the MidCamp hashtag. You can follow along there. I think the link is also in the session description. Lullabot, we're awesome. You should work with us because we're the bestest or something. So yeah, we do strategy, design, and development, and work with a lot of big media brands and do all sorts of fun projects. So what we'll go over here, we'll go over the file organization of Drupal 8 and how it's different. We're going to go over the core markup, the CEM or BEM class syntax, and I'll go over what that means. Twig, how that works, what you need to know, what that looks like, the YAML and beefed up config functionality, and just other stuff that comes up. So, file organization. Thank God we finally have a folder that has all the stuff that you can't touch so that you're less tempted to go and mess with core. So don't touch this, but everything else, it's all you. So now your stuff is a lot easier to get to. So my modules are just off doc root in the module folder. My theme is in the themes folder. So template.php has a new name, still the same file pretty much. It's now has a .theme extension, much like your .module file in your module. And I guess that's the way it used to be at Drupal 4 or 5. So I guess we're back to that. Info file also has a new name. It's now mytheme.info.yaml. So you're just tacking on the YAML extension and obviously using that syntax now. The CEM class syntax, this is something that Core is implementing. You do not have to use CEM syntax, but I personally enjoy it a lot, and it's really great that Core is using it. Explain that in a second. Oh, and I tried to make this slide deck so that if I'm not around and you want to reference this later, that you should be able to follow it and kind of remember what was going on. There's links to all the documentation, my sources, just pepper it all through it so you can look up more. So the rules of CEM syntax. We use classes. IDs are evil. The reason for that is they have high specificity. They are hard to override. When you're overriding, and you have like this insane specificity, things get really annoying. And then someone might use important, and then I'll scream and run away. So CEM, you've also heard of BEM. B in BEM is block, and we don't use that because blocks are kind of other things. So in Drupal land, we're calling it CEM for components. Same thing, just different word. So components, it's a chunk of markup that works together. So you could think of a menu, a teaser, a who's online widget, social share widget, etc. An element is a part of a component, so it could be the title, could be some text, an image, action link, anything that's kind of a distinct piece that you can identify. And a modifier is a way to say that this teaser is different than another teaser. So you might have I'll get to that in a second. So it's basically just a variation of either an element or a component. So what that looks like, any space is supposed to be replaced with a dash. So you have the component name. Components is just what you were used to seeing in Drupal 7 land. Nothing new there. When you have an element, you have the component name that it's from, and then 2 underscores, and then the element name. And so this is, at a glance, you can tell that this element belongs to this component, and it also means that you don't have to have as many classes in your selector, which means that it's going to be easier to override. Modifiers are separated by 2 dashes. So this is a modifier of a component, so it's just the component name dash modifier name, and this one is a modifier on an element. So this element is a little different than other ones that are of the same type. So here's a practical example. Just kind of pseudo code here. So this is a menu. So we have div menu wrapper. We have nav menu, menu list. So that's the UL. List item is the LI, obviously. The link, and then we have some other links. So then we have, for example, menu link active. So it has the same class as this. It has menu link, but it also has menu link active, so I can style off of that specifically. Another thing to say about CEM syntax is that it's not necessarily implying hierarchy. A element can be outside of a component. It's probably not going to happen too often. The circumstance where this happens generally is you made this like a year ago, and then all of a sudden there's a new requirement, and you're like, oh, I need a wrapper. So instead of having to change your classes, you just do menu wrapper, and you know it's part of your menu, but you had to add something outside of it. That also means that if the markup changes, your classes don't need to change as long as that element is still the same thing. Any questions? I'll totally take questions or whatever. Anytime anyone has them, you don't need to be overly polite.
I have a comment for the previous slide.
Sure.
So there is the menu underscore link. When you're using the modifier for that, you don't actually have to use the original class. Just for anyone, please don't do it, because it's pretty bad. Because then you can override it, and then you have to use like more specific selector again.
Yeah. This isn't. Are you saying you wouldn't put it on the element at all?
So it's only the menu underscore link that's just active without that.
In your CSS or HTML?
Yeah, in the CSS.
Oh, yeah. So I'm trying to imply HTML here.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Because it looks CSS, I just wanted to make sure that
if this
no
was
one
CSS,
thinks.
I would not put these two together for my selector. Yeah, that would be not cool. The whole point is to keep your specificity really low. This was just saying that if you're writing the markup, the A tag would have both of these classes, because it needs to get the styles from this guy and the styles that are going to override on that guy. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good point. I should work that out. All right. JS prefix. So in Drupal 7 and before, a lot of times I would remove a class and all of a sudden some feature that was in JavaScript stopped working because I wasn't supposed to remove that class. Well, now you have something that tells you, hey, you probably shouldn't remove this. There's JavaScript that's depending on it. So any class that JavaScript is adding or JavaScript is dependent on should have JS and a dash in front of it. So you'll know if something's coming from core, if you should mess with that or not. So yeah, and that could be a state, or it could be a class from jQuery once or whatever. Pro tip: this is just something we do at a lot of the Lullabot projects I've worked on. We also have utility classes, so like clearfix or text replace, stuff like that. We generally put a U in front of them just so we know that this class, you're not supposed to write other styles against these. They are only, they have a specific function, and that's all they do. And so you shouldn't be writing selectors where it's like, okay, if it's a sidebar text replace element, I'm going to do this. Shouldn't be doing stuff like that. So it's just another way with a little prefix to kind of clue your team into what's going on in your code. So another feature that I love about Drupal 8 is the very lean core markup and styles. So if I remove all the CSS from whatever theme I have active, looks like this. It has very little going on. You notice that even the tabs here for view, these are the tabs. View, edit, delete, devel, not styled. It's just nothing's there. That's exactly how I want it if I don't have any CSS in my theme, personally. But you may not be that kind of person. You might not be that kind of nerd. So there are two base themes in Drupal 8 Core. There's Classy and Stable. So Classy is the base theme for 7 and Bardock. It has the markup and styles that you're used to from Drupal 7. So it has a lot of that kind of quality of life kind of stuff already built in if you don't want to write everything custom. It's a really good option if you're looking for a base theme that's pretty simple. Stable is for the people who want to run everything from scratch. I do not want any quality of life from Drupal core. I want control over everything, and I don't want to have to be overwriting stuff from upstream. And so stable just has the bare minimum that you need to make the front end work. Both of these have well-organized files, and they have all the templates from core organized very neatly, thanks to Morton and some other people in the room who work on and maintain these things. So if you're wondering which one you should use, you're starting a new project, you're not necessarily looking to use a contrib theme, should I use Classy or Stable? So the general rule I have is if you liked working in D7, you liked having a lot of the kind of stuff basic stuff done for you already, use Classy. Classy's great. You will enjoy that a lot. If you're frustrated by D7 defaults and you wanted a lot more control and you didn't want to have to mess with anything, use Stable. Or you can actually decide to have no base theme. If you do not declare a base theme, you get Stable by default. And that is so the people that are working on Drupal can actually update markup as the web ecosystem evolves. Maybe the next mobile comes out and we need new meta tags or some crazy stuff that changes markup. So core can continue to update without breaking anyone's site, because everyone should be working off of Stable if they haven't declared a different base theme. So if you don't want a base theme, you want to ride the lightning and get whatever is the latest from core, the core modules and setup. You can put in base theme false in your info.yaml file. But I don't know many people that'll be doing that. I think that'll be kind of an edge case. But there's probably a good reason for it. So, Twig basics. Twig is awesome. I love it. So, no longer are you going to see a bunch of PHP tags all inside of your HTML or wrapping your HTML like all over the place. Now, this looks a lot more like HTML that just happens to have some variables in it, and it's a lot easier to read. And this is actually block.html.twig, but I've removed some of the comments and stuff so I could fit it on a slide. So this is real markup. So the basic syntax for Twig is, hey, I want to print something, which is you put two pointy brackets. What's the real name? Cool kids? Curly brace, thank you. Curly brace and then a variable, or whatever you want to print. Run code, so if you want to run code, you do curly brace and %sign, and then you can do whatever you want. This is like if statements or setting variables in this case. And then comments are curly brace and hash symbol. And then you can put in whatever comments you want, and it will not show up in the final markup. So, drilling for data in templates. I stole this one from Morton, I believe. I can't keep track of who I stole everything from, but so if you have simple static data, something that's coming from Node or from something upstream, in Drupal 7 we're doing a PHP syntax, so you have $title, then you have arrays, so you have content field body, I only want to print that, and then there's all this ridiculous stuff, so it's like just digging through arrays and objects and arrays and objects, and then, oh, it's an undefined language because we're not using internationalization, so it's not set. So, obviously you're not supposed to do that in Drupal 7, but that was there, and it was annoying and terrible. Drupal 8, it just looks like this. So these are the same thing. So if I want title, I just do curly brace, curly brace, title, and then content.field_body, and then my var has a lot of nesting and crap, and you notice that the und value isn't there because it's just going to send you the right language by default, and you don't have to worry about that garbage. Yeah, so the thing to notice here is you don't have to know you're accessing what type of data structure you're accessing. Twig handles that for you in the background. So there are some exceptions to that. So if you have a variable index like this, so in Drupal 7 you handle it this way, now you're going to use array syntax. It's exactly the same as dot notation. You're going to get the same result. It's just this will allow you to use a variable index instead of a static string index. And then since this starts with a non-alpha alphabetical character, you have to use the same array notation and then just quotes. Any questions so far? Going too fast? Going too slow? All right. I'm doing awesome. That's what I heard. All right. So behind the scenes, this is what's happening. It's actually going through and seeing, oh, is this an array key? When you're doing dot notation, is this an array key? Is this an object? Is this crazy stuff, methods, blah blah, whatever. So the reason why this is important to know, if you haven't written the code, sometimes it might not be clear if this is accessing a method, some function, or if it's just static data that's going to be in there. Usually it's obvious. I mean, stuff that if it's accessing a function, there's probably going to be parentheses right there and some parameters and whatever. But I don't think they're necessary. I can't remember.
I don't think they are actually. We can figure that out pretty fast.
Yeah, right. I don't think you need the parens unless there's a parameter. But so yeah, it might not be clear just by looking at it that it's accessing a function and not a static value. So just be aware of that. It's really easy to figure out. Obviously, you have devel and whatever at your fingertips to kind of see what you're digging into. Twig filters. So Twig filters, they take a variable or something and then they transform it in some way and send it back, right? So you can filter strings. So here's an example of sending a translatable string to the T function in Drupal. So you just have the thing that you want to apply the filter to, a pipe symbol, and then the name of the filter. And then here's clean class, same thing. So node.bundle would be the content type in Drupal 7 parlance, and your pipe, the clean class, so it's going to return it with stuff that's allowed inside of an HTML class. String length, so you can, I'm setting a variable. I want to have the title length as a variable, so I do title pipe length, and it's going to return however many characters are in the string. You can also apply filters to a block of text. So here's an example. There's weird white space in the string, or there might be, let's say it's a variable, and so I can do filter trim, and it will return the string with a regular amount of white space. So this would all be reduced to one space. So there are a lot of filters available to you, which I didn't quite mention. Oops. Ha! You can go to twig.sensiolabs.org/docs and look at all the filters you can get that are native to Twig. There's also Drupal ones that are custom, and I believe you can also add your own through some sort of class extend, blah, something weird, OOP stuff. And you can see what Drupal's doing by default at that URL right there. So you can also filter arrays. This one's really good. Node without. I can't remember if I talked about that later or not. Oh, it's been a while. All right. No, I don't. Okay, so the way this works is in Drupal 7 days, if we wanted to hide comments, let's say from a node, you would have to be managing this kind of state thing that's in the render array, right? So it was printed true or printed false, and if it had already been printed, it wouldn't print it unless you called it directly, and then it would print it. I was like, bleh, that's weird. I don't like it. So now what we're doing, instead of managing some sort of state in the render array that's printed true or false, if you want to print something, so if I just want to print the entire node, I would just do curly brace node. If I want to do node without comments, you just use a filter. So this is going to remove the index comments from this node just inside of here. It's not going to remove it permanently. And it's going to print everything that's in node except this index. And you could also put in, like, if you didn't want to print out the body yet or something else, you can just comma, other index, other index, other index. So this is a lot easier to look at and read and understand at a glance than trying to figure out if something's been printed or not, or maybe somewhere down the road someone hides something in a preprocessor and it breaks something somewhere else. This is a lot more dependable. Here's another filter for an array. It gives you your array keys if you need those. Countdown, so this is going to go from counting up, which is just a simple array here, and then I'm going to pipe it to reverse, so the countdown is going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can do all that lovely stuff. If else, that's what this looks like. Very simple to look at. You have, again, curly brace %sign because we're doing a code block, and very easy to reason about language. So if not page, then do stuff. And then here's else if not page, stuff, else if it's page and it's an awesome page, then do this other awesome stuff. And then else if it's something else. For loops, also pretty easy. So example, 0 to 10, I want to go through this and say this is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do that 10 times. And this one is iterating over an array or object. And loop, there's special variables you have access to, so you can look at, you can inspect loop. And loop.index is one that you'll probably end up using. It'll give you how many times it's run through this for statement. And then this is going to give me since I'm going through users and it's going to be called user, so it's going to give me the current user's username. Hooray, for statements. All right, so not only that lovely Twig stuff, we also have YAML now, which is easier for me to reason about than info files, and some beefed up config functionality inside of the theme. So you're going to have some new YAML files. So here's info.yaml file. Probably look pretty familiar. Looks a fair amount like the info files from Drupal 7. So name, type, description, package, these stuff. This is all kind of old stuff. Core. Libraries. Libraries are new and awesome. And also your regions here, and there's nothing really to scroll down to. So I'll explain libraries in a little bit. But it's kind of like adding it's adding your JavaScript and CSS to your theme globally, like it would in Drupal 7. So if you're creating a sub-theme, very simple, base space theme, and then name it. So you're probably going to use classy and or stable. If you're going to use stable, you don't need to say anything. You'll just get it by default. But if you want to use classy, just do that. So libraries.yaml. So this is a companion to info.yaml. Will be a separate file. So I renamed it themename.libraries.yaml. So I have my global stuff that I want to include. So in here I've put my CSS that you might see from Smack's type setup. Does anyone question to the Drupal 8 guys? Is there like a module layer? Like what? I've never.
So theme, that's based on the Smacks division. So you have base, theme, layout. What's the?
There's components.
Yeah, components. Yeah, so that's why it's there. So you can group your CSS files into these component groups. If you don't want to do that, just ignore it. Just put everything in theme. Done.
Nice.
If you look at Barticket as a good example of how
nice.
separates all those out in separate folders.
I haven't looked at it
this is
since like beta 10.
For those really cool people who go vanilla CSS.
Yeah. Of course, I was making. We were talking about that earlier, and I couldn't get my demo site to work, and I couldn't build my SaaS, and terrible. All right, so libraries are basically going to be a grouping of CSS and or JavaScript. So here's an example of, so we have a custom library that we've called Cuddly Slider. So it's going to apply some cool effect to the page. And this is later in the same file. This is, just don't have enough room on the slides. This is in the same libraries file. So I'm going to call my library Cuddly Slider. I can give it a version if I want. That's going to be really important if you're using a external library. It's going to tell you what version you're using, so if you end up wanting to upgrade or something, you know where you were. And then CSS, so I'm including some of my CSS, also including some JavaScript. And so that's going to be intelligently handled so that whenever I want to include Cuddly Slider on a page, it's going to get all my stuff for me. And so yeah. In your info file, if you want to include something globally, again, this is what it looks like. So we want to include the global styling library from the fluffiness theme. So I made my Cuddly Slider, and it got very angry at me. It didn't work, and I was like, I wrote my jQuery all right, and everything was working well, and what the hell just happened? Well, that's because jQuery doesn't get included on every page by default. You have to say, hey, I want jQuery, and then it will load jQuery. So we don't have extra page load for something that might not be used at all on the page. So in order to get Cuddly Slider to work, my JavaScript is dependent on jQuery. This is what a dependency looks like, and I'm just going to use the jQuery from core. You could also use a custom one that you want. You don't have to use weird modules to overwrite it and whatever kind of crazy junk that we used to have to do in Drupal 7. A lot simpler. So let's say you want to add a library to a specific page. You don't want Cuddly Slider site-wide. So if you were using Twig, you have like a file that's pretty much all the markup for Cuddly Slider, and it's the only place. Like if I use this Twig snippet, then I need that library. You can just do curly brace, attach library, and then this is the name of the theme, and then the name of the library. This could also be the name of a module. It's just machine name for something in Drupal. And then, yeah, whatever markup you wanted inside of that Twig file, and you're good to go. If you're doing this in PHP, either in your template file or somewhere else, because you want to use different logic to attach it, like the URL or, hey, I'm on the maintenance page or whatever. Looks like this. So you just do variables, hash attached, library, and then add a new index to the array, and basically the same syntax. And if the page has a fluffiness over 5,000, then you definitely want to add cuddly slider. Breakpoints.yaml. So it used to be in the breakpoints and image responsiveness stuff in Drupal 7 that you had to go through a lot of UI steps, which at the time I was like, these are frustrating, but at the same time I don't know how I would design it differently, and it was very irritating. And I think the great solution they had here is move it to a file. This is a lot easier to step through than a bunch of forms and next and back and whatever. So for any breakpoint that you want to use, let's say in a responsive image module or any other module that wants to use breakpoints for whatever reason, you just set them up in config like this. So we have fluffiness.mobile, so I'm going to give it a label for the UI. It doesn't have a meaty query because it should be the default. It has a weight. So the weight is so you can have them show in an order other than alphabetical, which might not make any sense. You want to probably have them in order of smallest to largest. And then multipliers, so if you want to have retina support or what have you, that's how you do that. And here's has a real meaty query. So the meaty queries are just CSS, nothing new and different and scary. So pretty awesome stuff. And then you can actually scroll down and has a real example. And this is from Drupal.org, so you can go read more about that if you want. So, you want to get started, you want to get developing on your local, what are the things that you're going to need to know to do that? So, if you want to inspect whatever's coming to the page, see what you have available to you, and let's say for some reason you don't have the code comment that's above on every file, you can just do curly brace dump, and that's a lot like print R or var dump or what have you. It's going to give you raw text version of the data object. But who wants that? That's kind of dumb. It's ugly. But you can also put in a specific variable. Oh, I didn't explain that well. So if you just do dump, you don't put anything in the parameters, and it's in a Twig file, it's going to print out everything that's in variables. It's just going to give you everything that's available to the page, but it doesn't have the variables index. If you put something specific in there, it's only going to show you that. Also, one of my favorite features is just, that you can just see everything that's coming to that without going to the pre-process layer. So, when I wrote this, which was a while ago, you couldn't use Crumo. I tried to visit my home page when I was developing. I was just like, okay, I'm going to pre-process page, I'm going to KPR variables, and then the white screen. I'm like, devel's enabled, what the hell? So I keep kind of like messing around and trying to hit the page, and like I don't see errors, I don't see anything wrong, and then eventually I do a wget of my website, and it came back and it was like, okay, 1 meg, 2 meg, 10 meg, 15 meg, got up to 750 meg. Pretty sure it had an infinite loop, and just decided to choke and not ever load the page. So if you install Devel, you will want to enable Devel Kint, which I think I like better anyway. I might not ever go back to Crumo personally. So Kint it's just a replacement for Crumo. Does a lot of the same stuff. Has some features that I like a little bit better. So same thing as dump before. You're in Twig, you just do Kint and then paren, and if you do that, it'll dump everything that is coming from variables. And then if you do something specific, it'll just print that. The coolest feature about Kint that I like, that I found by accidentally clicking, is in the top right corner there's an arrow pointing right on every printout. If you click that, it'll open a new tab and give you that printout so that you can reload the page and not lose what you were looking at in the data, which is very cool.
What is the difference between Kint and just doing a dump?
Dump is going to be like if you did print R or var dump and it's just plain text, whereas Crumo is like the JavaScript widget where you can expand and accordion and do all that fun
It's the
stuff.
same stuff though, same data?
Yeah, same data. Yep, same data. Glossy and pretty. So, set up your Twig developer settings. I just removed a step from here because I don't think you need to do it. But step one is you find where your twig.config is. By default, it's in development.services.yaml. That can theoretically change depending on how you want to set up the site. So you'll just find twig.config, and then there'll probably be a big comment, but then there's debug, and you want to change that to true. And that is going to change your life, and you'll see why in a second. And then you also want to find where your settings file is, add settings.local.php, and add these 2 lines, which is going to disable some caching so that every time you change Twig, it'll actually update the markup on the page, and you won't be seeing something that's cached, which can be very frustrating. The step in here that I removed that you had to do at some point, but I don't think you have to do anymore, is you used to have to go to your settings file. At the very bottom, there was a little bit of PHP that would include settings.local.php if it existed. And I think that is no longer commented out from the download I did this morning. So, this is what will change your life. So, Devel Themer, thing of the past, I think. Pretty sure. I mean, they might still be working on it, but this replaces my use case for Devel Themer, which makes me very happy. So basically, when you turn on Twig Debug, it's going to give you a bunch of HTML comments that surround template markup. So for example, let's say this is a block, and there was a bunch of HTML in the middle of this wrapper, right? But above the block that got printed out, it's going to say, oh, here's your theme debug stuff. And by the way, this is the theme hook I used. Oh, and if you want to override this template, here are your options. So it gives you all the theme suggestions, and it's like, oh, we only found a suggestion for block.html.twig. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. Which block.html.twig file did you use? Oh, it's right here. It's core/module/block/template/block, blah, blah, blah. So you know exactly where your markup's coming from. It is beautiful. And you know exactly how to override it with all the options available to you. And then it obviously has the markup for the block, and then at the end it says this is where that template ends, and it gives you that template path again. It is beautiful. It brings a tear to my eye. And pro tip, you can do this in Drupal 7. If your version of Drupal 7 is 7.3.3 or up, you can add this 1 line to your settings file, and it will work. You can pretty much, there's a million ways you can add that config, but that's my favorite because no one else has to see it.
Templates, not functions.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, it'll only do it for templates. It will not show you where theme functions come from. And that's just a limitation of how the thing works. But still, that's quite good. And usually you know where theme functions come from if you've been using Drupal for a while. So, getting into the weeds a little bit. Some kind of nitty-gritty stuff. So you can override libraries. So let's say an upstream module calls jQuery or some other module or some other library, and you want it to always use your version and not the version that they were preferring for whatever reason. You can replace a library or asset this way. So this is again this is in the info file, fluffiness.info.yaml. So this could be tacked onto the end. So we have libraries-override, and then you'll call the module or core in this case or theme, and then let's say the library is called Drupal.collapse, and then you want to replace that with my theme/collapse because I like mine better because it's cool. You can also just straight up replace a file, single file, so that looks like this. I honestly haven't done this stuff. I just know it's plausible that you can do it, but you can go read the documentation. I'm super excited to work on a site where I can just do this stuff, but I have not gotten a full-fledged project yet. Libraries override, so this one is removing a single asset, not replacing it. So instead of, in the previous example, we wanted to replace this file with this file. In this example, we are just saying, no, do not put this in there, I don't want it, because I put the styles for this in my awesome Sass. So if you want to remove an entire library, pretty much the same thing. You can say core modernizer, no thank you, false. Do not want. Oh, and then extending a library. So if a library comes up and you want to make sure that some extra files go with it, this is including 2 classy libraries whenever somebody uses the Drupal.user library. So, render types. These are, so render arrays in above the like Twig layer are almost all going to be rendered by Twig. They still look a lot like they did in Drupal 7, but like 99% of them are going to correspond to a Twig file. There are a couple, probably less than 5, I honestly don't know what they are right now, that do not get rendered by Twig, and that's for performance reasons. Things like link get hit so often that if they had to go to a Twig file, it would be a performance hit, and so the core maintainers decided that things like that would be rendered a little bit differently. So, oh, that's incorrect. Not all of them are typed. That's not a good way to look for them. I need to remove that. But so this is what it looks like. This particular link example. So I ran into this when I was I wanted to add a class to the A tag that was in the menu, and I couldn't do it from Twig at the time. But now there is a helper function that will construct a link array for you, and you basically recreate this array with the classes you want. So you'll say, I think it's like link, and then you pass the link text. And so when you pass the link text, you would do the link title. So you pull the existing link's title and the existing link's URL, and then you add on your classes. And I don't have an example of that right now. And I meant to add that. Apologize. You can modify. So actually, you can go in the preprocess layer and modify that stuff, but this is not necessary. You can do it in Twig with at least link. I haven't run into the other ones yet, but there are probably a couple other things that don't get rendered in Twig. Any questions? All right. Theme suggestions. So theme suggestions in Drupal 7 were kind of spread wherever in the preprocess layer, and you can go and modify them wherever they cropped up. In Drupal 8, they are all in hook theme suggestions, alter. So you can go in and see the existing suggestions for the thing that's come up, and it also tells you the hook right here. So it'll tell you what it is. So block, node, user. So you'll have the information you need to override it. And my crystal ball here is thinking that you're going to be using a lot less hook form alter in the future, because now you can recommend a template for every single form that pops up on your site. You can be specific and say, this newsletter sign up form, I want a special Twig file, and I'm just going to put the H3 that the designer wanted that says sign up now because we're the best, and I don't have to do that in hook form alter messing with a render array. If you do want to actually modify the actual form, you will need to do a hook form alter. But I found in my experience I'm not doing that in the theme unless things have gone horribly wrong. Attributes object. This is your new best friend. It is awesome, and I love it. So on any template, you'll have like the wrapper, right? So the outer like div.block or whatever it is. And generally what you're going to see in Twig is that it'll have whatever tag is on the wrapper and then curly brace attributes. So minor note, you do not need an extra space here. If there is no attributes, it'll just be tidy, and if there is, it'll put in the space on its own. So what attributes does is it's a way to for modules and core and everything upstream to add classes and IDs and, well, hopefully not too many IDs and other attributes to your theme layer without doing anything overly obnoxious or making their own templates all the time and all that kind of stuff. So when you're theming, if you want to see what you're getting, you can hint attributes to see what's coming out on that particular run of the template, and then you can decide that, hey, I need to add my own class, or hey, I need to remove a class, or hey, I need to figure out, does it have a certain class? So basically what you can do is you have dot notation. This is an object. This is a method, I think is the correct word, on that object. And so you can say, hey, I need to add my class, or hey, I need to remove their class. I don't want whatever that's doing. Please remove that. And then you can also add commas and add as many classes as add class. I think would want an array. I don't know if it takes
add class. You just comment that out.
You can do anything.
Yeah. You
Oh,
can
really?
Just, yeah, you
Yeah.
can just, you
can set multiple arrays or
You
Can do anything?
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, you just put stuff in and it comes out, it works.
Nice. So yeah, and you can set arbitrary attributes, so there's no special method, at least there wasn't for ID. So you can do set attribute ID and then whatever ID you wanted. But you could do stuff like data attributes, data bundle, and you could set it to be the node.bundle value, which will be, article, blog post, whatever your content type is, now bundle. And then, remove any attributes, so pretty same thing as removing a class, just toss in the name, like don't want an ID on this element. And then also you can do has class, so does this have the fuzzy slider class on it? If it does, I want to do something about that. Add an extra element or what have you. So yeah, lots of really cool things you can do in that, and it's a nice way to give modules and core what they need to do without messing up our stuff. And then all these kind of Twig method calls can be changed, so you can add class, remove class. So add, hello, remove, goodbye. So one thing we're trying to do in D8 is maybe we don't need the preprocess layer in the theme so much. And one of the ideas is that we have some logic that used to go in preprocess at the top of the Twig template. So you'll see this a lot in core where they're setting multiple classes and maybe they're based on variables or something that has a little bit of logic to it. And so you'll see this kind of thing where they make an array, add all their classes. You could add new lines to that and add your own classes. And then here it's add class, and then it's adding all the classes that show up in that array. Excuse me. And then in D7 that you would have done that in a preprocessor so you didn't screw up whatever's coming from modules or core. So Twig extends. Twig extends. In Twigland, these are really necessary, really handy, because they're building generally custom applications. They don't have a lot of the stuff that we have by default, like our theme layers already has a lot of power. They don't necessarily have that, so they use this a lot. We may or may not. There is some of this in core, and one of the talks earlier today mentioned that he was liking the idea of using this. I'm kind of skeptical, but basically what it does, let's say you have a template cool.html.twig, and so inside there you define a Twig block, which is not a Drupal block, and so this is basically a place where you might want to change out the content for whatever reason. So in here I have my default content. And then there's a different template that I want to make. It's pretty much the same thing as cool.html.twig, but it's a little different. It's cooler. So this one extends cool.html.twig, and then I have that same block, so my block's named foo, and then I want to toss in my alternate content instead of my default content. So the reason why I'm skeptical about that is you could just create like a rat's nest of dependency kind of stuff. If you do it just for real simple things and it's you're not nesting layers deep, it's probably great. But I haven't had the first-hand experience yet. But like I said, Twig has this because they don't have Drupal's theme layer and all of our power. So we'll see if this is really useful for us. Oh yes, and so one thing you can do that's really cool is you can include the default content in and your new content. So I could say that, hey, I want what the default content that was in here previously. So it's going to parent paren is going to pull whatever was in the upstream Twig template, and then I'm going to also add this. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool little functionality. And you can see that documentation on Sensi Labs. I already said that. All right. That was it. Yeah, sorry, I kind of just barreled through that. Any questions? Any, especially since smarter guys are here? Great time to ask.
3 or 4 things on this one. I had no idea you could do it. I was just like, ooh.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because that's what you get from like upstream libraries now, right? I mean, they're doing cool stuff all the time, and we just get it for free. It's working awesome. Anything? No? It's going to be a lot simpler. Yeah.
For those of us who don't want to write our own themes, then use
Sure.
contribs.
Yeah.
What's the relative merit of using something like Foundation versus something that was natively done in Drupal?
Okay, so the question was, what if you want to use contrib themes? What's the merit of using something like Foundation versus Drupal core theme? Is that
Or a Drupal contrib theme like maybe Zen, which isn't available in 8.
so? When you say Foundation, do you mean a theme in Drupal contrib called Foundation, or do you mean?
Well, Foundation is just a hookup to Zerb Foundation, or
Yeah.
Bootstrap is a hookup to.
So building your
Bootstrap.
custom theme with Foundation
Yeah.
as the.
Should you do,
Okay.
What's the relative merits of doing that as opposed
Yeah.
to a native Drupal theme?
Sure. So one way or another, you have to make a Drupal theme, even if it's based on an existing
course.
library. Yeah. So the existing themes out there that use libraries like that. So let's say you're looking at your own Bootstrap implementation versus the one that's already out there. The merit's generally going to be that you don't have to do the work, and generally those like Bootstrap or Foundation are opinionated enough where your implementation isn't going to be all that different from theirs, and with the power to with libraries to remove, modify, add stuff. There's a lot of control you have in your sub-theme that if you find that you don't need all the features of Bootstrap, and that might have been why you're considering doing your custom thing, you don't need to create your own custom implementation. So I hope I'm answering this right.
Does something like Foundation or Bootstrap, does that drag in a whole bunch of code that slows things down or
No, it's not a speed.
creates huge downloads?
Yeah, so the way I would look at, do I use something like Foundation or Bootstrap, or do I not? The question I usually ask for that is, do you have like a front-end rockstar that wants to do that work on their own? Because a custom implementation might have better stuff for your particular needs, whereas Bootstrap Foundation have good solutions for general needs and hopefully will fit yours.
I don't have a rockstar and my client's not going to pay for them.
Yeah, so then that's a really good reason to use one of those libraries. And especially if you're not, if you have someone who's more of a, wears a ton of hats and maybe front end isn't like their biggest hat, right? That would be definitely a good reason to use one of those. It's not going to, like, unless you're really, really picky about performance, you're not going to notice any major slowdown on any well-implemented theme. That's not going to be the thing that affects it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, some of the base themes like Bootstrap and Foundation, they do really crazy things on the theme, so it can be a major difference theming on top of those. So that might be one thing that you want to consider also. Like if you haven't used them before, using them might be a very different experience than building a own custom theme. So just one extra thing to consider.
Yeah, definitely. I actually haven't looked at the particular Bootstrap Foundation themes in Drupal.
I know that Mark is working on it, and when I talked with him last time, he was like, I think his quote is, it's hella baller, what I'm doing right now. So, being a native Dane, I'm not really sure what he's doing, but he sounded very excited.
Mark Drummond?
No, Mark Carver.
Oh, okay. Oh, Bootstrap guy,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Oh, nice. Cool.
But basically, the way we tried to design the theme system was that you have some kind of CSS framework you want to smack on, and you can basically do that by taking your CSS framework, having like the markup patterns that you want to build, and you should more or less be able to build them out of the box. So hopefully the theme will not cost you $100 to build every time, maybe 85.
Yeah.
Because but now the front end people can geek out and make cool
Right.
shit.
Yep. Yeah. Go.
Is there anything, if you want to use like SAS or less or anything like
Sure.
that, is there anything in particular you need to do differently for Drupal?
Nope.
Compass running or anything?
Drupal does a pretty good job of staying out of the way of anything like that. So that's you would implement it the way you would anywhere else. Yeah, the one thing I've been thinking about is, do I want my npm files and stuff like to run just in my theme, or do I want it like lower level and maybe it affects more things? Like I've implemented Pattern Lab like on a separate. So I have doc root and Pattern Lab are siblings, and it's like, okay, do I put my package.json in the root of the directory that's above doc root, or do I put it in my theme and then reach down and then reach back up? But yeah, there's nothing that Drupal does that's specific that'll change that?
So if you're using Sass or less on other systems, there is no difference. But one thing that confuses people is because there is modules to compile Sass and less in Drupal automatically. And some people think that they are forced to use this kind of modules when they use Drupal, but they are just for people who are not familiar with Sass or less. So you can use Sass or less just like you would use with any other system, but there is also other kind of solutions that you don't have to use.
Do you find that those other things are helpful? Do you tend to use them? Or
I don't use them myself, but some people use them because, let's say, some of them provide a ability to recompile your CSS every time you reload a page, which you might find useful if you are unable to run the watch on your computer.
Sure. So that's a Drupal module that kicks that off, you said?
Yeah.
Huh. I had not considered
Just
that.
to make your tool chain a little bit longer.
Yeah, right. Actually, that would remove one tool from my tool chain. Anyway, nice. Any other questions? Yeah.
Are there any sort of hands-on tutorials to follow along with to create, say, a theme based on...
Well, Drupalize Me has a really good Drupal 8 theming section. Actually, I watched quite a bit of that, and Joe Schindler did an excellent job of explaining all that in detail. They have code examples, videos, articles, like whole shebang. Really cool. And they have new pricing models that are cool. So
20%
Plug.
off if you're a Drupal Association member.
Oh, nice. There you go. Drupal Association members get a discount. That is awesome. I get it for free because I work. That's nice. Cool. Any other questions?
So, what if you want to contribute and help out with this awesome new theme?
That's a
How do
good
you do
question.
that?
So there is a Slack channel that we have, and I'm not entirely sure how to get the
Let me
invite.
wonder if I know what that's called here on my laptop.
There's also, is the IRC still going? Drupal,
Yeah, kinda.
Drupal Twig, I think it's one word.
Yeah, so most of the work stuff happens on the IRC, but people are burned out and they're slacking.
Yeah.
Also, my eyes steal 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I'm getting
Great.
old. As you can, God damn it. See, this is what happens when you stay like for 3 years in the issue queue. You get this old. Not young as Lowry is over there, but this old. I've been running around and doing a lot of this stuff for the last 3 or 4, 5, 6, 10 years. Wanting to change the front end. Here's the thing: we are slowly getting, not slowly burned out. At this point, we're completely burned out. Basically, the last 6 months, none of us has pushed so much as a line of code in because we fixed all of this shit you saw here, and that was a tremendous amount of stuff. We really need new people to come in and help. Here's the good thing: all of this stuff, a lot of this is really easy to come and help with. We know it's hard to get into Drupal the first time you go into an issue queue and you meet people who's not friendly because they have another way of developing stuff for. So we have a Slack channel called, if you go into Slack invites, let me just see what it's called. slackinvite.me/2/Drupal Twig, where we're trying to gather people in because we know that a lot of people don't want to go on IRC to help out because IRC is harder to figure out. People are used to using Slack. We really want to have designers to come in as well to help out, actually figure out, have we done this the right way? One of the things we suddenly figured out is like an image tag right now, to get an image out, we have 5 templates. That's not so good, but none of us has the energy to build it. Probably going to have the energy later on to do that. Another thing we're doing each week, every Thursday, we gather on a hangout and talk about what we're going to do. A lot of that had also just been like, it has been kind of a little bit of the Northern European white dudes club for the last year or two. I'm a little bit sad about that because it should be I'm the old man apparently on that group, and we have a young one and another bearded dude with luscious hair. He doesn't have luscious hair anymore. A lot of internal jokes. We really want to open up the doors more. We really want to have more people. We really want to have more designers in and people who's just markup junkies and want to work with that. It is a new thing in Drupal to make that a thing. If you come to DrupalCon in New Orleans,
Yep.
we're gonna probably on Monday. There's gonna probably happen something. I do not know yet how the takeover is going to be, but a bunch of sessions as this as well. But finding like the material, everybody's nervous about what is all this, and every time I've given a session for it, people have been like screaming of like oh no, I have to unlearn all this stuff. And when you built it the first time, it's actually wonderful. But we really want to make the product better. That also means that on Sunday, because we actually have, besides of Kotzer, we actually pretty much have the whole core group of people who've been building this stuff. We have had them here at this conference. So on Sunday, we're going to be clever and writing 8.2, which comes out in 6 months. We're going to try to figure out what is it that we see as the pain points, and where we're going to go also about 8.3, 8.4, and so forth. And it's important that it's going to become we want to get more people in. So and people should come to us, and we want to like educate you and help you out, because when we burn out, we have 6 months now without anything got done. That's kind of sad. But I mean, it's a fair price compared to the burnout we would all have had, and it's not that. So anyways, that was my word on Sunday. Else come to me and talk to me. Lowry is there, the dude with the luscious hair. His hair is not so luscious anymore. Is Mark here as well? He is right down there. He's down there. He has done a lot of things as well. Come and ping us up and talk with us about it. Yell at, we're trying to get slackers who's like, no, I'm not coming to DrupalCon because I have to get married and stuff. What's that?
It's a lifetime commitment. It's beautiful. No.
That's the scars I have on my Drupal Twig arm over here. No, we really want to have more people, and we really want to get designers and people who see themselves as web designers. Anybody remember when we were that? Yeah, you do. Yeah, you can like 96, 97, 98. But that whole way of building sites, I mean, we can build that stuff with Drupal, so we can beat the shit out of WordPress.
One thing he pointed out, Badcamp, and he kind of mentioned just now, is when you're learning Drupal 8, you do kind of need to let go of some of the Drupal 7 baggage, because it's not an issue anymore. There are like a few gotchas, but they're just very, very, very few. Like knowing that the link render array doesn't go through Twig, just like a couple little things. It's really, really nice to work with. And it's going to feel a lot more like working with Mustache or like, those really simple languages, but you have all the power of Drupal above it. So, you're going to have an awesome time. It is slick. Any other questions? Any other? Cool. Well, thank you for having me. Sources. It's like one of his talks, and Kotzer and Joel, sorry. And and also I would tack on Drupalize Me, and Mark helped a lot.
And the library thing that, oh shit, I can't remember the name right now, I'm so tired. There's a library article just came out yesterday.
A library article?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And something about responsive images also came out.
Bye, everybody.